Hi Yin Yogis, it's Sue, and I'm here today to guide you through a Yin Yoga sequence. This Yin Yoga sequence is all about soothing your back. So the other day I was prepping for a big family meal. A bunch of people were coming over, so I was cleaning and I was preparing food, and all of a sudden I went to pick something up, something small, not very big, and as soon as I started to stand back up, I just felt something happen. Felt that familiar tug, and I knew I was going to be in some back pain for a while. So I put together a Yin Yoga sequence to help ease that back pain, and I hope it can be helpful for you too. So today I have some props. I've got a blanket here, I've got a bolster, a couple of blocks, and then I've got my timer. So if you're doing this at home, you can grab a couple of pillows off of your couch or off of your bed. Grab a blanket that's easy to manipulate, to move and to fold, so nothing too terribly big. If you don't have yoga blocks, they're a great thing and pretty inexpensive to invest in. All right, so we're gonna get started. We're gonna start by coming into a variation of caterpillar. So this variation of caterpillar, you'll have your feet out in front of you, and then you're gonna cross ankles. So bring one ankle on top of the other. So you could stay right here. If you feel like this is the best place for you, then please stay just like this. Now you can start to lean yourself forward. So there's the fold that comes in our caterpillar. If you're feeling already like this is a little too much strain on your back, grab a bolster. And you're going to take that bolster on its side. And then you can lean over the bolster. You can let your chin or maybe your forehead rest on the bolster, and that's going to give your back a little bit of support. Now you could also take your blanket and put that underneath you. So lifting the hips sort of makes it a little bit easier as you come forward. Now for me, when I'm doing this posture, I feel a nice stretch in the hip butt area of the leg that's on top. So we'll start that posture. I'll set the timer. And then find your way there. So once you're coming into the pose, allow your body to soften. So we're going to try and stretch some of that fascia. And that fascia was maybe tightening up while I was doing all that prep work. There's also some stress involved. So maybe the fascia was tightening the muscles and the fascia tightening again during that time. So while you're here, check in. I'm going to make sure that your toes are nice and soft, your ankles are softening. No tension through your legs, although you may feel a nice stretch on the back of your legs. Notice if you're tightening up through your glute muscles. Soften through your low back. And then just notice the way your spine gently curves forward. Try to soften the shoulders. Allow your neck to soften. You could let your head just rest. Maybe if you come all the way forward, rest on your hands. If you're not quite there, you want some support, you can grab a block and let your forehead rest there. Now every couple of moments, check in. Make sure that you're still in a relaxed state. I'll let you know when the time is up. there's no rush to leave the pose. When you are ready, you can place your hands onto the floor, maybe onto your legs, and super slow, start to come out of it. So feel like you're stacking your spine as you're coming up. And then once you're up, once the shoulders are stacked on top of the hips, pause for a moment here. Just feel the difference now in your legs, maybe in your glutes, possibly in your back. Now you're going to uncross your ankles. And you'll be still again just for a moment. So every time you come into a yin posture, we ask that you find stillness for a moment. And that's just to let all of the energy, all the work the body is doing, all of that goodness get absorbed into your body. Now, when you're ready to move, you might start by just wiggling your toes or working through your ankles. You can bend your knees and windshield wiper the knees side to side. So that might feel really nice for tight hips or tight low back. Now, sometimes countering the yin poses with something a little more yang, so yang means we're going to work the muscles. You could come into a reverse plank, so that's just lifting up the hips. You could come into a reverse tabletop, so it looks like tabletop, except your front side is toward the sky. Those are two nice yang ways to recover. You might also think about a twist for your spine after that forward fold, so you could do a little seated twist. The idea in recovery is to make sure that you're doing what your body is asking for. So if your body wants to do something that I didn't mention, then that is what is right for you. So do the right thing. All right, so of course, we're going to do that same posture on the other side. So if you liked sitting on a blanket, place the blanket underneath your hips. You'll cross the opposite ankle on top this time. So you might use your props differently, right side to left side. It really depends on your body. One side can be a little bit tighter and probably is a little bit tighter than the other side. So once you've crossed your ankles, you'll slowly start to make your way forward. Now if you used a bolster on one side but you don't feel like you want it on this side, you don't have to. Or maybe the other side was the open and you want to use props. You can use your bolster, a couple of pillows. You can use the block underneath your head. Now start to make your way forward. So walk yourself forward. And as you're coming into this posture, from your toes, start to soften. Let go of any kind of tension that your muscles are holding. So a lot of times, especially if you practice a more yang practice, you start to flex your ankles, trying to get a deeper stretch. You're going to let those ankles soften, toes soften. Feel the backs of your legs. Notice one side feels a little bit different than the other. Come up into your hips and your glutes, nice and soft there. Release any strain or pressure in your low back. And if you are rounding forward, feel your shoulder blades just gently fall away from one another. Soften through your neck. And notice your jaw. Let your jaw soften. Release if you feel like you're crunching your teeth together or pressing your lips together. Let your whole body surrender to the posture. Find stillness. Now, stillness of your body, and then allow that stillness to come into your mind, into your thoughts. If you're having trouble quieting the mind, focus your attention on your breath. When you're breathing, you really can't think of anything else when you're focused on your breathing. So notice each time you inhale, and notice when you exhale. Notice the spaces in between when your body is still, when you're not breathing in or breathing out. Maybe those spaces get a little bit longer. start to ease your way out of the posture. So you can always stay 2 or 3 or 5 or however many more breaths you want. If you're feeling really good in the posture, stick around for just a little bit longer. Once you have lifted the upper body, pause. Pause and feel. Get to know your body. Understand your body. Now you can uncross the legs and then you'll be still again for just a bit of time. Maybe there's only a slight change as you uncross your legs. Maybe you feel a lot. Now when you are ready to move, listen to your body. So intuitively, what would your body want to do next? So I know in my body, oftentimes I just want to work the ankles first and then go into windshield wipering, the knees side to side. If you like that more yang way of recovering from the pose, feel free to take that reverse plank or reverse tabletop. Now if you are suffering from back pain, take it easy on those yang poses. Take it slow, make sure everything feels okay. Now you can take as much time as you like before moving into the next posture. So if your body wants to wait a little bit longer, if you want to move just a little bit more, that's perfectly fine. So the next pose that we're going to come into is a little bit of a back bend. So if you're suffering from back pain, you want to come into this really thoughtfully and really carefully. We're going to come into a pose called Sphinx. So for Sphinx pose, you're going to come onto your belly. You'll come onto your belly and bring your elbows right underneath your shoulders. So it's like this arm bone is holding up your upper body. So notice if there's pain in your back, a couple of options here. So you could let your toes touch and then let the heels fall open, if that feels okay. For me, it feels better to separate my feet wider than the hips. For me, I just feel like there's a little more space for my body. Now, once you've got your legs set up, think about where you want to be in the upper body. So in your Sphinx pose, in a yin practice, you're letting the heart melt down toward the floor, and you can let your head drop toward the floor. So there's a lot going on through your shoulders and through your neck. Now, that's not comfortable for everybody. It's really nice if you want a little support for your neck. It's really nice to use a block underneath your forehead. So if you're taking that option, you'll just bring the block right underneath your head and let your forehead rest there. That block could be at any height. You could use a couple of blocks, make a tower of blocks so you're a little bit higher. Now for some people, coming up onto the elbows is not going to be okay. It's just too much pain. So if that's you, a couple of other options. If you bring your hands down, widen your elbows, bring your hands down, you're still in an itty bitty little back bend here. You could make fists and then let your head rest there. So you're still curving the spine a little bit, but not quite as intense. So find the place that feels best for you. I'm going to set the timer here. And then as you're melting into this Sphinx pose, start at your toes. Feel the toes and the bottoms of your feet. Allow your feet and your ankles to soften. Feel into your calves. Feel the back of your knees. And then feel into the back of your thighs. Soften your hamstrings. Now your glutes hold on to a lot of tension. So see if you can soften a little bit through your glutes. Now we're coming back to the toes. Feel the tops of your feet gently resting on the mat or on the floor. Feel your shins soften. Feel your knees on the mat. Now let your thighs, your quadriceps, just melt into the mat. No work here at all. Feel into your hips. Now come to your low back. Feel a little more space there. So as you exhale, send your breath there and allow your body to soften. Traveling up your spine, noticing the moment it starts to curve up. And then feel into your shoulders, so the shoulder blades are gently squeezing toward one another without any effort from you. Just let gravity do the work. Feel your belly on the mat. You might feel your ribs moving as you're breathing in and out. Now soften your neck. Make sure the neck is supported enough. And soften your jaw. Just bring your attention to your body and to your breath. rush. Take a few extra breaths. When you're ready, you'll lift your head. So if your head was on a block, you'll lift your forehead from the block. If your head was hanging heavy, just lift it up. Now, a couple of options. One option is to bring your hands on top of one another and let your forehead rest there. Another option is to come into a child's pose and rest there. Remember, we're looking for a place to be still coming out of the pose, so whichever one feels best for you. Oftentimes, when someone takes child's pose, they might want to stay there a little bit longer, be still in child's pose a little longer. If you have taken that option where you're on your belly, when you're ready for movement, it might feel really nice to bend your knees and then windshield wiper the knees side to side. Windshield wiper the feet side to side. If you decided to go into a child's pose, it might be nice if you want some movement to come through your tabletop and then just work into some cows and cats. You might want to stay in cat a little bit longer, so that's the opposite that you were doing before. And if you're looking for some yang, some more sort of muscular work, you can come into cat but lift your knees. Downward facing dog is also a really nice way to reset your body after a posture. So maybe downward facing dog with some movement. So move as much as you like. Change as much as feels right for you. Now when you're ready for the next pose, coming into a butterfly pose. So for a butterfly pose, you're going to bring the soles of your feet to touch, and then in your yin practice, we encourage you to bring a little more space between your feet and your body. So you've got this nice big diamond shape. Now if you are here, and this doesn't feel quite so nice on your hips, you can take your blocks. You could also do this with a couple of blankets or a couple of pillows. But take your blocks, your pillows, or your blankets and place them underneath your thighs or your knees, and that way you've got a little bit of support. If you feel okay, you can let your knees just fall down toward the floor. Just let gravity do the work here. Once you feel comfortable in the low body, you'll start to bring your upper body over the low body. So if your hips don't like you to go down so far, or maybe the back is not cooperating, you can use your bolster again. You can tilt it on its side, and then just allow yourself to lean forward. Now you could use your blocks here to support yourself. So maybe make a tower of blocks and let your forehead rest. Just rest right on the blocks. That's a really nice place to go. So sometimes when you have back pain, some of that issue can come from your hips. So we're just going to open the hips in this butterfly posture. Open the hips, and as you're rounding forward, gently stretch the fascia along your spine. So I'll set the timer. Make yourself comfortable using props, whichever props work best for you. And then once you've come into the space that is where you want to work, allow your body to be still. So let all the muscles let go. When you let all the muscles go, then you can start to stress your fascia. So stressing and stretching, opening and changing your body. Now your target area in this posture is, of course, your hips. So start with your hips, checking in, noticing how sensitive you feel, how intense this posture feels. Allow your hips to soften, feel a little more open through your inner thighs. Now notice your back as you're rounding forward. Allow your body to release. Now sometimes there are special places where you hold tension, and maybe that's different than where I hold tension. So you know where that place is, in your shoulder, in your glutes, in your back. Give a little bit of love to that area, so as you exhale, allow that space to open. Now let your mind quiet as you settle into the pose. When you're ready to leave the posture, give yourself a little bit of support, especially if you have back issues. So you want to use arm strength to lift yourself up. You can press into your mat, maybe press onto your legs, but use your bicep strength as you're coming back up into your straight and tall spine. Now pause for a moment. Once you're sitting up tall, you're going to feel, or you may feel a difference through your hips and your thighs. Maybe you feel a difference through your spine. Now stay still just like this as long as it feels pretty good. When you're ready to take your legs out of the pose, you might take your hands underneath your knees or your thighs and slowly bring the knees together. Now once you have the knees together, it might be nice to wrap your hands, your arms around your shins and just stay here and stay still for a moment. Now if that option doesn't feel good coming out of your butterfly pose, you can straighten the legs right away, but just make a choice, either bent knee or straight legs, and then pause and feel the effects from the posture. So feel that there is energy, there's blood moving, there's been something that changes in your body while holding this pose. Now when you're ready to counter this pose, think about what your body wants. What is your instinct? What is the first thing you want to move? So that's what you should do first. Again, I want to wiggle my toes and work through the ankles. My body wants to lean back and windshield wiper the knees side to side. You could do something more yang. You could go into down dog. You could do a reverse plank or reverse tabletop. A twist is really nice here. You can do a simple twist where you're seated and you're just moving from side to side. You could come onto the mat and do a reclined twist if that feels better for you. So just find out what works for you. Find out what works for your body. And take as long as you want. Take as much time as you like. So the next two poses are going to be linked together. So we're not going to counter in between the poses. So you'll lie back on your mat. And then once you're on the mat, take your ankle to your knee. So right here, it could be enough. It could be enough for your body. You might feel like you're getting a nice stretch through your hip, the hip connected to the bent knee. If for you, there is nothing going on and you need a little bit more, a couple of options. So you could take your block or a stack of blocks. And you could have your grounded foot on the blocks and then have your ankle to your knee just like before. Maybe that's enough. Another option, and this one is tricky, you'll interlace your fingers behind your thigh and then pull your knee toward your chest. Now the reason this one is tricky is because you're using some bicep strength here. You're holding on. And the object is to soften everywhere else. So you're softening through your hip, that's your target, but you're softening through your shoulders as well. So decide which variation makes the most sense for you. If you're taking that variation where your hands are behind your thigh, you might interlace your fingers so your knuckles kind of lock, and that might help you use a little bit less energy to stay into the posture. Now once you've gotten yourself where you want to be, soften your ankles and soften your toes. Feel into your hip, soften your glutes. Now feel the way your back is supported by the mat. It's beautiful. There's no work for your back here. Now soften the shoulders. Soften through your neck. Feel like your spine is nice and straight. Feel free to close your eyes and just breathe.
to release, you'll bring that grounded foot back to the floor. Keep your ankle and your knee connected. I'll just pause for a moment. Feel your hip that was getting that big opening. Feel it soften, feel it relax. Feel some extra space there. So remember I said we're going to link two poses together. We're not going to do any countering in between. So for the next pose, you're going to keep that ankle and knee connected, and then let your foot and your knee drop over toward the floor. So a couple of options here. Maybe you're feeling really tight and your foot doesn't come all the way to the floor. You could place a blanket or a block or a bolster underneath, a pillow underneath your foot. If your foot comes all the way down, you might want to take your hand and hold on to the foot. Just let your knee fall away in the opposite direction. And then as you're holding this posture, you're allowing the shoulders to soften onto the floor. So if you can, both shoulders. Feel that hip, same hip, feeling like it's opening, maybe in a different way. If any of this is painful at all, you're going to come out of it. Come out of it or find more support to go underneath your foot or even underneath your knee. Now just let your body settle. You can look in the opposite direction if that feels okay on your neck, or you can just have your gaze up toward the sky. Soften through your glutes, soften your hips. Now soften through your whole low body, soften through the legs. If you're holding on to your foot, just a little bit of strength in that arm. Soften through both of your shoulders, maybe even walk the shoulder blades together. Allow your mind to find a peaceful and quiet place. Stay in the pose just a little bit longer if you like. When you're ready, you'll release that hand that was holding on to the foot, and then you could use a little bit of support. You can use your hands to bring your body back through center. Now you'll want to pause for a moment here, so having your body in that position, arranging your body that way, it may have been really intense, so let your body be still. Feel the way your body is absorbing that work, absorbing the energy. When you are ready, you're going to place your foot back onto the floor. So now both of your feet are on the floor. You could bring the knees to touch. Separate your feet a little wider than your hips and just let yourself settle in here. So for me, whatever my back issue is. This is really powerful. I feel like my back is getting a little bit broader, a little more open, that there's more space there, and that brings a whole lot more comfort for me. So this is really good, very good for my back. Now, when you're ready to move, please feel free. You can windshield wiper the knees side to side. You might want to bring your knees into your chest and rock side to side. Maybe draw some circles with your knees. You could take a happy baby here if that feels good. You don't have to stay on your back to recover or reset your body. You can sit up, you can come into downward facing dog, you can do tabletop and work into some cows and cats. Whatever feels good, whatever feels right, you do what your body asks you to do. Now, of course, we're going to take the other side. We always want to balance in our yoga practice. So I'm just clearing out the timer. And so take the opposite ankle to the opposite knee. And we still have all the same options. So you could place blocks underneath your foot, and that way the blocks will allow you to softly stay in the pose. Maybe keeping that grounded foot on the floor is enough. You already feel a lot going on through your hip, so if that's you, stay just like that. The other option is to interlace your fingers. You're going to interlace the fingers behind your thigh, and then gently use some arm strength to pull the knee toward the chest. So you're just doing this until you start to feel sensation in that hip connected to your bent knee. So once you've found that spot, check into your body. Are you holding on to tension anywhere? Are your muscles tightening? So the only muscles that might be working here would be your arm muscles. Your arm muscles if you're pulling your knee toward you. So if you are using the arm muscles, check in with your shoulders and check in with your neck. Let those parts of your body release. Now come to the part of your body where the intention is to stretch or to stress. So come to your hips. Right side, left side, they're going to feel different from one another. Find the place that is feeling the most sensation. And then just let your mind's eye travel through that sensation, softening in those areas, creating space. Soften the toes and the ankles. Let go in the glutes and your low back. And then just enjoy the inhales and the exhales of your breath. Remember, if you're focused on the breath, then you can't think about anything else. So just focus on the inhales, the exhales. Be aware when you are breathing in. Let the breaths be whatever they want to be. So breaths can be long or short. Your breath can be full or shallow. But just let your breath nourish your body. When you're ready to release, nice and slow, start to let your foot come down to the floor. And then once the foot is connected, once your foot is touching, you'll just pause for a moment. Feel your whole backside soften into the mat. So from your shoulders all the way down to your tailbone, feel that the mat is supporting, it's lifting you up. So there's no work for you here. And we're going to keep the ankle and knee connected, and then just let the foot and the knee drop over toward the side. So here's where you might use some support. If you feel a little uncomfortable, you can place a blanket or a block, a couple of blocks if that feels better for you, underneath your foot and underneath your knee, so you're lifted a little higher and it's not quite as intense. If you like, you can take your hand and hold on to your foot, and that might bring you into a space where you're feeling a little more sensation. So find the right place for you. Figure out what feels good through your hips, what feels okay through your spine. So your spine is getting a little bit of a twist here also. Soften your shoulders, so both of your shoulders are pretty close to the mat, maybe even walking the shoulder blades in just a little bit. Now if you wanted to make this twist just a little twistier, you can look in the opposite direction of where your foot and your knee are. So I would look this way. Take a moment to pause and soften the body. So maybe you have connected to a space where your body naturally pulls in and tightens up. So just exploring your body allows you time to think about that. So if you found that space, send your attention, send your breath there first. So maybe it's a little spot in your shoulder, or maybe it's in your neck. Maybe you find that you're always pressing your tongue against the roof of your mouth. Once you found that little space, each time you exhale, imagine that that knot is starting to untie. Imagine that there's now space in your muscle. You're starting to lengthen and broaden. As you let go, you can feel that softness, that sensation travel throughout your body. Now our target here for sensation, of course, is your hip. So check in with that area, soften. Check in with the areas around it. So release tension through your glutes and your thighs. And notice if there's anything going on in your back. Look at your low back. Let your mind's eye look into your low back first. And then travel all the way up your spine into your shoulders and your neck. And just let everything soften. Give in to the posture. As you are ready to come out of the pose, you can release that hand if the hand was holding onto your foot. You might want to use your hands, your arms to help you come back through center. And then pause there for a moment. Feel your backside nice and flat. Now when you are ready, you can bring the other foot down to the mat. Maybe even do a little adjusting here so that you feel everything is aligned from the crown of the head all the way down to your tailbone. And then maybe you want to stay still a little bit longer. Maybe you're ready to move. You could do just half of it when we're moving, bringing one knee into your chest, just finding some space in your hip and your low back. You could do that to each side. You could do that traditional when we're moving both knees in at the same time. Maybe working a little movement here, happy baby. It's a fantastic place to come to. Now, if you wanted to, maybe even a bridge would feel good to you, something a little more young, lifting up the hips. Feel the front of your body get nice and long. Feel the back of your body strengthening, getting stronger. Now recover, reset the body in any way that is appealing to you. I'll take as much time as you like. When you're ready for your next pose, the next pose is Savasana. So Savasana is often a favorite. So if you're preparing for Savasana, I like to use a bolster in Savasana. And because I have low back issues, I like to bring the bolster underneath my knees. Underneath the knees and underneath the thighs. So that's the best place for me. You could also use your blanket and just fold it up and place that underneath your knees, underneath your thighs. That's going to give you a little break in the back line. You don't have to use any props at all if you prefer not to. So if you're coming into Savasana, you'll lie back onto the mat. Lie back and then separate your feet nice and wide, so a little bit wider than your hips. And then you can take up as much space as you like. So arms are nice and wide, palms up and open. You can start to walk the shoulders in toward one another. So think about all the things you learned about your body while you were practicing today. Take all of that information and use it as you're setting up for Savasana. So Savasana is often considered the most important posture. So we want to give it a lot of respect and take time coming into it. So find the place that feels best for you and then close your eyes. Close your eyes and start to take a trip. Start at your toes. And just let your mind's eye travel through the body, moving through the feet and the ankles. Feel the lower part of your legs, so the front side and the back side, the shin and the calves. Feel into your knees. And then allow the upper part of your legs to soften. So the quads and the hamstrings, they do so much work. Allow them to just give in. Feel more spacious through your hips. Now feel your low back completely softening into the mat. Feel the way the mat supports your shoulders. And in that support, you can soften through your belly, open up through the heart, the chest. Feel your arms gently resting on the mat or on the floor. Feel a little bit of warmth or energy in the palm of your hands. And just notice the way your fingers gently curl back, completely softened and relaxed. Find some space and some ease in your neck. And then relax your scalp. Feel your cheeks soften. And let your lips very gently touch. And feel like there's a tiny bit of space between your teeth. You might bring your attention back to your breath, just following the gentle breaths coming in and out of your body. found a position where you are completely peaceful and still, stay in your Savasana a little bit longer. If you're ready to exit, you might just wiggle the fingers and the toes just to wake the body up a little bit. Take a nice big breath in, and then sigh it out. It might feel nice to roll over to your side before you get up completely. You might come onto your side and just hang out for a little bit, and maybe spend a couple of breaths here. You can use a little arm strength to lift up, to come back into your seat. Now, after a beautiful yin practice, you might want to spend some time, maybe in meditation, and just sitting in stillness. It's been an honor to guide you through your practice. The love and the light within me honors and recognizes the love and the light within you. Namaste.